From the time she was little, everyone in the family said that Leah was the quiet one. She was the kind of girl who did what she was told, never argued, and always tried to make peace when others fought. Her older sister Anna was the opposite, bold, beautiful, and always the center of attention. If Leah was a soft breeze, Anna was the storm that followed. Their parents loved both of them, but deep down, Leah always knew who the favorite was. Whenever Anna walked into a room, her mother's eyes lit up. Whenever Anna spoke, their father listened. Leah didn't mind at first. She was used to being in the background, used to hearing people say, "You're lucky to have a sister like Anna." But one day, Anna brought home someone who changed everything, a man named Daniel. Daniel was tall, well-dressed, and spoke with a calm confidence that made people listen. He ran a small but successful company and had a reputation for being generous. Everyone liked him immediately, especially Leah's parents. From that day, they treated Daniel like family. Anna and Daniel started dating seriously, and within a year, he proposed. It was the kind of proposal that belonged in a movie. Roses, candles, a private dinner at a rooftop restaurant. Leah remembered watching it all from a corner, smiling even though her heart felt strangely heavy. She didn't understand why, but every time she saw Daniel look at Anna with affection, something inside her ached. She told herself it was just admiration. Daniel was kind, and anyone would admire him. The wedding plans began right away. Their parents were over the moon. They saw Daniel as their ticket to a better life. Leah's father's business was struggling, and her mother often whispered about unpaid bills. But now, with Anna marrying into wealth, they believed all their problems were solved. For months, the house was filled with excitement, dress fittings, floral samples, food tastings, and endless discussions about decorations. Leah helped where she could. She ironed dresses, organized guest lists, and even accompanied Anna to meetings with planners. But no matter how much she helped, Anna rarely thanked her. Instead, she often snapped or complained that things weren't perfect enough. Leah brushed it off. She told herself that brides were under pressure, and Anna would calm down after the wedding. Then everything changed, 2 weeks before the big day. It was a quiet evening. Leah was sitting by the window, stitching a small lace ribbon onto Anna's wedding dress. Anna came in suddenly, her face pale and her eyes full of something Leah couldn't recognize at first. Fear. "I can't do it," Anna whispered. Leah looked up, confused. "Can't do what?" "The wedding," Anna said. "I can't marry him." Leah froze, the needle slipping from her hand. "What are you talking about?" "The wedding's in 2 weeks. Everything's ready." "I don't love him," Anna said in a low voice. "I thought I did, but I don't. I met someone else." Leah's heart skipped a beat. "Someone else?" Anna nodded, her eyes darting around as if the walls could hear her. "His name's Adrian. He's not rich like Daniel, but he's different. He makes me feel alive." Leah didn't know what to say. It felt like a bad dream. "Anna, you can't just walk away now. Everyone's waiting for this wedding. What will you tell Mom and Dad?" "What about Daniel?" Anna bit her lip and turned away. "I don't know. I just know I can't go through with it." Leah spent the rest of the night trying to convince her sister to at least talk to Daniel, but Anna refused. She said she'd already made up her mind. The next morning, when Leah woke up, Anna was gone. She had left a note on the kitchen table. It said, "Please don't try to find me. I need to do this for myself. Tell Mom and Dad I'm sorry." When Leah's parents found the note, chaos broke out. Her mother cried uncontrollably while her father shouted so loudly the neighbors could hear. "She can't just leave like that," he yelled. "Do you know what this means? Do you know how much money has gone into this wedding? The guests, the venue, the press. Daniel will be humiliated." Leah tried to calm them down, but they were too angry to listen. That evening, Daniel came over. He looked worried but calm. "Where's Anna?" he asked softly. Leah's father hesitated. She's not feeling well," he lied. "She just needs a little time to rest before the wedding." Daniel nodded slowly, though Leah could tell he didn't fully believe it. He stayed for dinner, and the silence at the table was heavy. After he left, Leah's father closed the door and turned to her with a strange look in his eyes. "Leah," he said, "come sit down." She obeyed, still confused. Her mother was pacing back and forth, tears streaking her face. "Your sister has ruined everything," her father said. "Do you have any idea what kind of shame this will bring us if people find out?" Leah stayed silent. "Daniel's family is powerful," her father continued. They've already sent invitations to hundreds of guests. The media will be there. If the bride doesn't show up, it'll destroy our reputation. And Daniel might sue us for breach of contract. We can't afford that, Leah frowned. What are you saying? Her mother stopped pacing and looked at her. You're her sister, she said quietly. You look alike. With the veil, no one will notice. Just take her place, just for the ceremony. Leah blinked, thinking she misheard. What? Her father leaned forward. All you have to do is walk down the aisle. Say the vows. The veil will cover your face. After the ceremony, we'll tell Daniel the truth. He'll understand. You'll just be helping the family. Leah shook her head in disbelief. That's crazy. I can't marry him. That's not fair, to him or to me. Her mother grabbed her hand tightly. Please, Leah, you've always been the responsible one. You know what this means for us. If this wedding doesn't happen, we'll lose everything. The house, the business, everything your father worked for. Just do this one thing. It's only for a day. Leah felt her heart pounding. She looked at her parents' desperate faces. They weren't asking. They were begging. That night she couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, staring out at the dark sky. The house was silent except for her mother's muffled sobs in the next room. She thought about Daniel, the way he smiled politely, the way he treated everyone with kindness. He didn't deserve to be lied to, but neither did her family deserve to lose everything. By morning, she made a decision she would never forget. When she walked into the kitchen, her father was already there, sipping his coffee. So, he asked quietly. Leah nodded slowly. I'll do it. Her mother hugged her so tightly that Leah could barely breathe. You're saving us, she whispered. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur. The lie grew bigger each day. Leah avoided Daniel as much as possible, afraid that even a glance would expose her secret. Their parents told everyone that Anna was staying indoors to avoid bad luck before the wedding. The morning of the ceremony arrived. Leah's stomach churned as she put on the wedding dress that was never meant for her. The lace hugged her shoulders, the veil covered her trembling face. Her mother fussed over her hair, whispering, Everything will be fine. Just don't speak too much. Keep your voice low. The car ride to the venue felt like an eternity. She watched through the window as people gathered outside the church, smiling and taking pictures. Her palms were cold, her heart racing. When she stepped out of the car, everyone turned to look at her. Cameras flashed, music played, and the world felt unreal. She forced a smile as she walked down the aisle, her father holding her arm tightly. Then she saw Daniel waiting at the altar. He looked handsome in his black suit, his expression calm but warm. When their eyes met, Leah almost stopped walking. He smiled softly, and for a second, guilt tore through her chest. She wanted to tell him everything, to scream that she wasn't who he thought she was, but she couldn't. The priest began the ceremony. Leah's hand shook as she repeated the vows. Her voice trembled so much that Daniel reached out and gently held her hand. It's okay, he whispered. I'm here. Those simple words nearly broke her. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, applause filled the church. Leah could barely breathe. Daniel lifted the veil slightly to kiss her forehead. His lips were gentle, his eyes filled with tenderness. She forced herself to smile even as tears burned behind her eyes. The rest of the day passed in flashes. Pictures, laughter, congratulations. Everyone said the bride looked radiant. Leah felt like she was living someone else's life. She barely ate during the reception, and every time Daniel looked at her, she felt the lie grow heavier. That night, when they reached Daniel's mansion, a beautiful stone house surrounded by gardens, Leah's heart pounded in her chest. The reality of what she had done finally hit her. She walked into the bedroom and stood by the window, staring at the moonlit garden below. Daniel walked in behind her, his voice soft. You must be tired, he said. It's been a long day. Leah nodded without turning around. Yes, very. He hesitated, then said gently, I know weddings can be overwhelming. You don't have to talk tonight. Just rest. He smiled kindly, kissed her hand, and left the room, closing the door quietly behind him. The moment he was gone, Leah collapsed on the bed, tears spilling down her face. She felt trapped, caught between loyalty to her family and a truth she could never speak. She thought about Daniel's kindness, his trust, and how she had broken both without him even knowing. In the silence of that grand house, she whispered to herself, What have I done? The room was still. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves and the moonlight fell across the white lace of her wedding dress. proof of a lie too big to undo. That night, Leah didn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for morning to come, though she knew that when it did, nothing in her life would ever be the same again. The first morning after the wedding felt unreal. When Leah opened her eyes for a moment, she forgot everything that had happened. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows. The soft white curtains danced with the breeze, and she almost smiled, until she remembered where she was. She sat up quickly. The room was too big, too elegant, and too strange. The walls were painted cream, and a large mirror stood across from her bed. She saw herself in the reflection, still wearing the nightgown she'd changed into, her face pale, her hair messy. She didn't look like a new bride. She looked like someone pretending to be one. A soft knock came at the door. Leah froze. "Come in," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Daniel walked in, dressed neatly, holding a tray of breakfast. "Good morning," he said with a smile. "You were still sleeping, so I thought I'd bring this up." Leah forced a small smile. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he replied. "Yesterday was a long day." "You barely ate?" He set the tray on the small table near the window. There was coffee, fruit, and fresh bread. The smell filled the room, and for a second Leah's stomach growled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Daniel noticed and chuckled softly. "Eat," he said kindly. "You'll feel better." She nodded and sat at the table. He joined her, watching quietly as she nibbled on a piece of bread. "Are you nervous?" he asked after a while. Leah looked up quickly. "Nervous?" "Yes," he said gently. "It's normal. Everything's new. Marriage takes time to adjust to." She nodded again, not trusting her voice. Inside, her heart was pounding. Every word he spoke reminded her of the lie she was living. After breakfast, Daniel told her he had to go into the city for a few hours to meet some business partners. "You can rest," he said. "If you need anything, just ask Maria, the housekeeper. She's very kind." When he left, Leah felt both relieved and lonely. She wandered through the house, afraid to touch anything. The mansion was quiet, almost too quiet. The walls were decorated with paintings, and the floors were so shiny she could see her reflection in them. In the living room, she saw a large photo of Daniel and Anna on a shelf. Her heart squeezed painfully. They looked perfect together. Anna's confident smile, Daniel's calm expression. Leah touched the frame lightly, her fingers trembling. She whispered, "I'm sorry." The hours passed slowly. She spent most of the afternoon sitting by the window, staring at the garden. Maria, the housekeeper, brought her tea and asked if she needed company, but Leah politely said she was fine. She didn't want to talk to anyone. Every conversation felt dangerous, as if one wrong word could reveal her secret. When Daniel returned in the evening, he seemed tired but cheerful. "How was your day?" he asked. "It was quiet," Leah said. "Good. You need rest after all the stress." He sat across from her on the couch, smiling kindly. "My mother wants us to visit soon. She's been calling since the wedding, but I told her we'd come when you're ready." Leah's stomach turned. Daniel's mother. How would she face her? What if she noticed the difference between her and Anna? "I'd like that," Leah said softly, hoping her voice didn't shake. Daniel nodded. "She's very fond of you. She always says you bring calm wherever you go." Leah almost laughed bitterly. If only he knew how untrue that was. As the days went by, Leah tried to adjust to her new life. Daniel treated her with respect. He was gentle, patient, and never raised his voice. Sometimes he'd ask questions about their past, small things, like where they'd first met or what her favorite food was, and Leah would freeze, trying to remember what Anna had told her. One evening, he noticed her hesitation. "You seem different lately," he said, his tone curious, not suspicious. Leah's heart skipped a beat. "Different how?" He smiled. "I don't know. Softer maybe, calmer, it's not a bad thing. Just new," she forced a laugh. "Maybe marriage changes people." Daniel chuckled and nodded. "Maybe." But deep down, Leah knew it wasn't just that. He was beginning to see her, not Anna, but the person behind the mask. And that terrified her. Every night when she was alone, Leah would think about Anna. She wondered where her sister was, what she was doing, whether she even cared about the mess she'd left behind. There were no calls, no letters, no messages, nothing. It was as if she had disappeared completely. Leah's parents called once every few days to check on her. Her mother's tone was always tense. Remember, just keep quiet, she'd whisper. Don't say anything unnecessary. We'll figure something out soon. But soon never came. Weeks passed and the lie became heavier. Leah felt trapped in a life she never chose. She smiled when she had to, but inside she was breaking. One afternoon, while walking in the garden, Daniel joined her. He carried a small basket of roses he'd just picked. These are your favorites, right? He said, handing one to her. Leah stared at it, confused for a second, then nodded. Yes, I love them. Anna had hated roses. Leah realized it too late. Daniel smiled warmly. I thought so. You told me once that they reminded you of your grandmother's garden. Leah's stomach twisted. She didn't know what to say, so she just smiled and said, Yes, that's true. He looked at her curiously for a moment but didn't ask further. Later that evening, while Leah was tidying her things, she found a photo album in one of the drawers. It was filled with pictures of Daniel and Anna, vacations, birthdays, smiles. Leah flipped through the pages slowly, her eyes stinging with tears. She saw a version of Anna she didn't recognize, happy, laughing, carefree. She closed the album and held it to her chest. Why did you do this to me? She whispered. The next morning, Daniel told her they were visiting his parents' estate for the weekend. Leah tried to hide her panic, but her hands trembled. What's wrong? He asked gently. Nothing, she said quickly. I'm just nervous, he smiled. Don't be. They love you. When they arrived, Daniel's parents greeted them warmly. His mother hugged Leah tightly. My beautiful daughter, she said. You look even more graceful than on your wedding day. Leah forced a smile. Thank you. Throughout the visit, Leah did her best to stay quiet and polite. She listened more than she spoke, afraid of saying something that didn't match what Anna would have said. But Daniel's mother noticed her silence. You're so quiet these days, she said over lunch. You used to talk non-stop when you visited. Leah laughed nervously. I guess I've just been tired. Daniel smiled and squeezed her hand under the table. She's adjusting to everything, he said softly. His kindness made Leah's heart ache. He was defending her, protecting her, yet she was the one lying to him. That night after everyone went to bed, Leah stood by the window, staring out at the moonlit garden. Daniel came in quietly behind her. Couldn't sleep? He asked. She shook her head. No. He stepped closer, his voice gentle. You've seemed distant lately. Is everything all right? Leah turned to face him, her heart pounding. For a moment, she wanted to tell him the truth, to confess everything and end the pain. But when she saw the trust in his eyes, the words froze in her throat. I'm fine, she whispered. Just a lot on my mind. He nodded slowly. All right, but you can talk to me anytime. You know that, right? Leah nodded. I know. When he left, she sank into a chair and covered her face with her hands. The guilt was unbearable. Days turned into weeks and Daniel grew more affectionate. He'd bring her small gifts, cook breakfast for her, and take her for walks by the lake near their home. Leah found herself smiling more around him, forgetting for brief moments that their marriage was built on lies. But then reality would hit again, and she'd retreat into silence. One afternoon she received a call from her mother. The tone was sharp and anxious. Have you heard from Anna? No, Leah said. Nothing. Her mother sighed heavily. This can't go on forever. If Daniel ever finds out, it'll destroy us. Do you understand? Leah's hands tightened around the phone. Do you understand what this is doing to me? She whispered. I'm living a lie every single day. Her mother's voice softened. You're doing this for the family, Leah. You've always been the strong one. We're proud of you. Leah wanted to scream that she didn't want to be strong anymore, but she stayed silent. That night, Daniel noticed her red eyes. Were you crying? He asked gently. She shook her head quickly. Just tired. He didn't press. Instead, he sat beside her and began talking about his childhood. How his father used to take him fishing. How his mother loved to host family dinners. Leah listened quietly, amazed at how open he was. At one point, he said softly, You know, when I first met you, I never imagined we'd end up together. You were so confident, so full of energy. But now I see another side of you, a quieter one. And I think I like this side even more. Leah's throat tightened. She forced a smile, but tears filled her eyes. You're too kind to me, she whispered. Daniel smiled gently. That's what love is, isn't it? When he said that word, love, Leah's heart broke a little more. She turned away so he wouldn't see the tears rolling down her cheeks. That night, as she lay in bed, she made a silent promise to herself. She would find Anna. Somehow she would make things right. She couldn't keep living in a lie that hurt an innocent man. But fate had other plans. A few days later, while Leah was sorting through some papers in Daniel's office, she found a small envelope tucked behind a drawer. It was addressed to Daniel in Anna's handwriting. Her hands began to shake as she opened it. The letter was short. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I can't marry you. I've met someone else. Please forgive me." The date on the letter was 2 weeks before the wedding. Leah's blood ran cold. Daniel had this letter all along. He must have found it, but if he knew, why hadn't he said anything? She quickly placed it back and closed the drawer, her mind spinning. Had he discovered the truth already? Was he waiting for her to confess? That evening, Daniel acted completely normal. He smiled, asked about her day, and talked about a business trip he'd be taking soon. Leah tried to respond normally, but her voice trembled. When he left the room, she sank onto the couch, her heart racing. Maybe he knew. Maybe he'd known all along, and if he did, why was he still being so kind to her? She lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, her mind full of questions. The truth was closing in, and she could feel it. The perfect world she'd been forced to live in was beginning to crack, and deep down she knew soon everything would come crashing down. Leah woke up the next morning with a heavy heart. She hadn't slept at all. The letter she'd found in Daniel's office still burned in her mind. Anna's words kept echoing. "I can't marry you. I've met someone else." She couldn't understand it. If Daniel had found that letter before the wedding, why hadn't he said anything? Did he know the truth? Or was he pretending just like she was? She went downstairs to the kitchen, her hands trembling. Maria greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, madam. Coffee?" Leah nodded silently. She could barely speak. She sat at the table, staring at the cup in front of her, lost in thought. Moments later, Daniel walked in. He looked cheerful, as if nothing was wrong. "Good morning," he said, kissing her forehead lightly. Leah managed to smile. "Morning." He poured himself some coffee and sat across from her. "I'll be leaving for my business trip tomorrow," he said casually. "Just a few days out of town." "Oh," Leah said quietly. "That's nice," he smiled softly. "Will you miss me?" Leah looked up at him, trying to read his face. He seemed relaxed, kind, the same as always. "Of course," she said, forcing a small smile. Daniel chuckled. "That's good to know." The rest of the morning passed in silence. Leah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She wanted to ask him about the letter, but didn't dare. If he didn't know the truth, bringing it up might make things worse. After Daniel left for work, Leah went back to his office. She stood in front of the drawer where she had found the letter the day before. Her heart pounded as she slowly opened it again. The letter was gone, her knees went weak. She gripped the edge of the desk to steady herself. He knew. He must have seen that someone had touched it. For the rest of the day, she moved through the house like a ghost. Every sound made her jump. Every time the phone rang, she thought it would be Daniel demanding answers. But when he came home that evening, he was calm, too calm. They ate dinner together. He talked about his meeting, about how the company was expanding. Leah nodded along, barely listening. After dinner, he looked at her for a long time as if trying to see something behind her eyes. "You're quiet again," he said softly. "I'm just tired," Leah replied. He smiled gently. "You've been tired for weeks." She looked down at her hands, not knowing how to respond. Daniel reached across the table and touched her fingers lightly. "You know, Leah. Or should I say?" He paused. Her heart stopped. "What?" she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Never mind, you just seem different lately. But maybe that's a good thing." She forced a small laugh, pretending not to understand. Inside, her chest was tight with panic. That night, she lay awake long after he'd fallen asleep. His words replayed in her head. Or should I say, he'd almost said something else. Something that terrified her. The next morning, Daniel left early. Leah watched from the window as his car disappeared down the long driveway. As soon as he was gone, she picked up the phone and called her mother. "Mom, he knows," Leah said, her voice shaking. "What do you mean?" "I found Anna's letter in his office. And now it's gone. He must have seen it. I think he's testing me." There was silence on the other end. Then her mother said firmly, "Calm down, Leah, you're imagining things. Just act normal. He has no reason to suspect you. But what if he does? Then you have to hold yourself together. If he finds out, we'll all be ruined." Leah closed her eyes, tears welling up. I can't keep doing this, Mom. It's tearing me apart. Her mother sighed. You've come this far. Don't lose control now. The call ended, but her mother's words gave her no comfort. She felt trapped again, like a bird in a cage that couldn't see the way out. The day before Daniel's trip, they went out for lunch together. The restaurant was quiet, the kind of place where people spoke softly. Daniel seemed distant, thoughtful. He watched her carefully, his eyes calm but searching. Do you ever feel like life gives you tests you didn't ask for? He asked suddenly. Leah froze. What do you mean? He smiled faintly. Just a thought. Sometimes things aren't what they seem. People wear masks. Her heart skipped a beat. She stared at her plate. I suppose that's true, she said softly. He didn't say anything else. When they got home, Daniel helped her out of the car and squeezed her hand gently. I'll be back soon, he said. Take care of yourself. Leah nodded, forcing a smile. You too. When he left for his trip the next morning, she stood at the gate and watched his car disappear again. A strange mix of relief and sadness filled her chest. The house felt empty without him. For the first time in weeks, Leah felt she could breathe. She spent the day cleaning, reading, and walking in the garden. But the loneliness soon crept in. By nightfall, she missed his voice, his calm presence, even his quiet smiles. She didn't want to, but she did. That night, while she was lying in bed, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Hello? There was silence at first. Then a familiar voice said, Leah? Her heart nearly stopped. Anna? She whispered. Yes, it's me. Leah sat up quickly. Where are you? Do you have any idea what you've done to me? I didn't mean for things to go this far, Anna said, her voice trembling. I thought you'd just cover for me for a few days. I didn't think you'd actually marry him. Leah's voice broke. You left me no choice. They forced me. You ran away and I had to fix everything. Do you know what it's like living with him? Pretending to be you every single day. Anna was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, she said softly. I really am. But I can't come back. I'm with Adrian now. We're planning to leave the country. Leah's breath caught in her throat. You're serious? Yes, I just called to tell you. To let it go. Just stay there. Maybe Daniel will fall for you. He's a good man. Leah couldn't believe what she was hearing. You're unbelievable, she said, tears streaming down her face. You ruin everything and now you're telling me to pretend forever? Anna's tone turned sharp. It's not my problem anymore. You made your choice. Then the line went dead. Leah sat in silence, the phone still in her hand. Her sister's words echoed in her mind. You made your choice. She felt a wave of anger rise inside her. Anger at Anna, at her parents, at herself. None of this was fair. She hadn't chosen this life. It had been forced on her. When Daniel returned a few days later, Leah tried to act normal, but he noticed the change immediately. You look upset, he said gently. Did something happen while I was gone? Leah shook her head. Just tired, that's all. Daniel watched her closely as if he didn't believe her. Are you sure? You can tell me anything. She looked into his eyes. There was genuine concern there. For a moment she wanted to tell him everything, to confess, to beg for forgiveness. But fear held her back. I'm fine, she said softly. He nodded slowly, but his eyes said he didn't believe her. That night, while Leah was in the study reading, Daniel came in quietly and handed her a small box. What's this? She asked. Open it, he said. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with her initials engraved on it. Except they weren't hers. They were Anna's. Leah stared at the bracelet, her throat tightening. I found this in one of your drawers, Daniel said quietly. Strange, isn't it? You told me you lost it months ago. Leah froze. Oh, yes. I forgot it was there. He looked at her for a long time, his expression unreadable. You forget a lot of things lately. She didn't know what to say. He smiled gently, but there was sadness in his eyes. Don't worry. I'm not angry. People change. Then he turned and walked out of the room, leaving her alone with her racing heart. That night, Leah couldn't stop shaking. He knew, she was sure of it now. The small tests, the careful questions, the bracelet, it all made sense. The next morning, Daniel left early again. Leah spent the day pacing the house, wondering what to do. She thought about running away, but where would she go? She had no money of her own, no one to turn to. By evening, she decided she couldn't take it anymore. She needed to know the truth, what Daniel really knew. When he returned home, she waited until after dinner, then followed him into his office. He was sitting at his desk reading. "Daniel," she said quietly. He looked up, smiling faintly. "Yes? I need to ask you something." "Go ahead." She hesitated, her heart pounding. Do you ever feel like you're living with a stranger?" He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "That's an interesting question. Why do you ask?" "Just wondering," she said softly. Daniel set down his pen and stood up. He walked toward her slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. "You're right," he said quietly. "Sometimes I do feel that way." Leah swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. "You used to know every detail about my life. You used to laugh at my jokes. You remembered things that mattered to us. But lately, it's like you're someone else." Leah's heart pounded so loudly she thought he could hear it. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, "If there's something you need to tell me, I'll listen." Tears filled Leah's eyes. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She wanted to tell him everything, but her courage failed her at the last second. Instead, she whispered, "I'm just not myself lately." Daniel nodded slowly, as if he already knew that wasn't the full truth. "It's all right," he said finally. "Get some rest." He turned away and Leah walked out of the room, her chest tight with guilt and fear. That night she cried quietly in her bed, wondering how much longer she could keep this up. Outside, the rain began to fall, tapping softly against the window. Leah watched it through blurry eyes, thinking of the life she could have had if none of this had happened. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew the truth was getting closer, and soon there would be no more hiding. The days after that night passed slowly. Leah felt like she was walking on glass, careful with every word, every movement. Daniel's behavior hadn't changed much on the surface. He still spoke kindly, still smiled, but there was something behind his eyes now. Something quiet and unreadable. He didn't ask questions anymore, but that only made it worse. His silence was heavier than words. Leah could feel it every time they were in the same room. It was like he was waiting for something, for her to say it herself. One evening, she was sitting in the living room when Daniel came in holding a small stack of old photographs. "I was cleaning the guest room closet," he said. "Found these." He handed them to her. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through them. They were pictures from his engagement party, Anna's engagement party. In the photos, Anna was standing beside him, smiling brightly, her arm around his. Leah was in some of them too, standing a little behind, smiling shyly at the camera. Daniel watched her face as she looked through the photos. "You don't remember these?" he asked softly. Leah's mouth went dry. "Of course," she said quickly. "That was a long time ago." He nodded slowly, still studying her. "You know what's strange?" he said. "When I first met you, you used to hum that song from the party all the time. But lately, you don't even react when it plays." She forced a laugh, her voice trembling slightly. "I guess I just don't remember it clearly anymore." He smiled faintly, but there was sadness in his eyes. "Memories fade, I suppose." Leah looked down, unable to meet his gaze. She wanted to disappear. That night, Daniel was quiet during dinner. He barely spoke a word. Leah could feel his thoughts swirling behind his calm expression. When they went upstairs, he stopped her at the door to her room. "Leah," he said softly, "can I ask you something honest?" She froze. "Of course," he hesitated, then asked, "Who are you, really?" Her heart stopped. "What?" He looked at her steadily. "You've been different for months. Your habits, your tone, the way you talk. It's like you're not the same person I married. I tried to tell myself it was stress or change, but it's something deeper. So I'll ask again, who are you?" Leah's knees felt weak. She gripped the doorknob to steady herself. "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered. Daniel stepped closer, his eyes filled with quiet intensity. "Then look me in the eye and tell me you're Anna." Leah's lips trembled. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. The truth was right there, sitting heavy in her chest. "Tell me," he said again, his voice soft but firm. Tears filled her eyes. "Please," she whispered. "Don't ask me that." He closed his eyes for a moment as if he already knew the answer. Then he stepped back. "I see," he said quietly. "That's enough." Leah's breath caught. "Daniel, please." He turned away and walked down the hall without another word. When the door closed behind him, Leah sank to the floor, shaking. The truth was out now, or at least part of it. She didn't sleep that night. She kept replaying everything in her mind: the wedding, her mother's pleading face, Anna's betrayal, Daniel's quiet kindness. She had tried so hard to keep it all together, and now it was crumbling around her. The next morning, Daniel was gone. His car was still in the driveway, but he wasn't in the house. Maria said he had gone out early and didn't say where. Leah spent the whole day waiting. When he finally returned in the evening, he looked exhausted. He didn't say much. They ate dinner in silence. Afterward, he walked to the window and stood there for a long time, looking out at the garden. Then he said quietly, "You know, I used to think honesty was the one thing I could always trust. That no matter what happened, the truth would show itself. Now I'm not so sure." Leah's throat tightened. "Daniel, He turned to face her. "Just answer one thing. Where is she?" Leah froze. "Anna," he said calmly. "Where is she?" She opened her mouth but couldn't form the words. He sighed. "I had my suspicions for a while. The way you reacted to small things, the way you spoke to my colleagues, Anna used to be loud, confident. You're quiet, gentle, careful with every word. I told myself maybe marriage changed her. But then I found the old bracelet, the one she said she'd lost months before the wedding. And the letter." Leah's eyes widened. He nodded slowly. "Yes, I know about the letter. She left it for me before she ran away. I found it the morning of the wedding." Leah felt dizzy. "Then why did I go through with it?" He finished for her. He gave a faint, sad smile. "Because when your parents came to me, begging for time, saying Anna was sick, saying you could take her place temporarily, I knew exactly what was happening." Leah stared at him in shock. "You knew?" He nodded. "From the start." Her heart was pounding so loudly it hurt. "Then why didn't you say anything? Why did you let me live this lie?" Daniel's eyes softened. "Because I wanted to see who you were. The first night I saw you in that wedding dress, I knew you weren't Anna. But I also knew you were scared. I saw it in your eyes. And then over time, I saw kindness, honesty, a gentleness I never saw in Anna. You weren't pretending out of greed or deceit. You were trying to protect your family." Tears rolled down Leah's cheeks. "I thought you'd hate me if you found out." Daniel shook his head. "I don't hate you, Leah. I never did. I just didn't know how to reach you. You were trapped in this web your family spun around you, and I couldn't break it without hurting you." Leah covered her face, sobbing quietly. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted this. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I was scared." He walked closer and knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "I know. And I can't imagine how hard it's been for you." She looked up at him through her tears. "What happens now?" Daniel sighed. "That depends on you," she frowned. "What do you mean?" "I don't want to hurt you," he said softly. "But I also can't live in a lie forever. If you want to leave, I'll let you go. I won't tell anyone. But if you want to stay, it has to be as yourself, not as your sister." Leah stared at him, unable to believe his words. "You'd still let me stay?" He smiled faintly. "Leah, somewhere along the way I stopped caring about who you were supposed to be. I just cared about you." Her heart ached. "But what about Anna?" His expression turned distant. "She made her choice. I waited for her once. I won't do it again." Leah felt torn between relief and guilt. Daniel's forgiveness felt like a miracle, but it also reminded her how much pain her lie had caused. That night, for the first time, she slept peacefully, but only for a few hours. When she woke before dawn, Daniel was gone again. She found a note on the kitchen table. "I need time to think. Please don't worry. I'll be back soon." Leah folded the note carefully and held it against her heart. She understood. He needed space, and maybe she did too. The days that followed were quiet. She spent her time walking through the garden, thinking about the life she wanted, the life she could finally build honestly. For the first time, she wasn't pretending. She was simply Leah. One afternoon, while she was watering the plants, a car pulled up in the driveway. Her heart jumped, thinking it was Daniel. But when the door opened, her world tilted. It was Anna. Leah stood frozen as her sister stepped out, wearing dark sunglasses and a long coat. She looked thinner, tired, but her expression was still proud. "Leah," she said, walking toward her. "We need to talk." Leah's voice shook. "Why are you here?" Anna sighed. "Because I made a mistake. Adrian left me. I have nowhere else to go, and I heard Daniel knows everything. Leah stared at her, anger rising in her chest. Now you care? After everything? Anna looked down. I was stupid, okay? I thought I could have everything. Love, freedom, excitement. But I was wrong. I lost everything instead. Leah's hands trembled. You didn't just ruin your life, Anna. You ruined mine too. I know, Anna whispered. That's why I came back. I thought maybe I could fix it. Fix it? Leah repeated, her voice breaking. You think you can just walk in and fix what you destroyed? Do you have any idea what I went through? The lies, the fear, pretending to be you every day. Anna's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. Leah turned away, her voice shaking. It's too late for sorry. Just then, Daniel's car appeared at the gate. He stepped out slowly, his eyes moving from Leah to Anna. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then he said quietly, I wondered when you'd come back. Anna tried to speak, but he held up a hand. Save it, I know everything. She swallowed hard. Daniel, I never meant to hurt you, he nodded. Maybe not, but you did. Anna looked at Leah, her voice trembling. So what happens now? Daniel glanced between them. That's up to you too, but I'm done with lies. Leah deserves peace, and so do I. Leah looked at him in shock. You mean, you're not angry? Daniel smiled softly. I was for a long time. But what good does anger do now? I just want the truth to rest. Anna looked away, tears streaming down her face. I don't expect forgiveness, Daniel nodded. Then don't ask for it. Just learn from it. There was silence. The wind rustled the trees. Leah took a deep breath and said quietly, Anna, you should leave. Not because I hate you, but because we both need to start over. Anna looked at her for a long time, then nodded slowly. You're right. She turned to Daniel. I hope you'll both find peace. Then she walked away, her figure slowly disappearing down the driveway. When she was gone, Leah turned to Daniel. Do you think she'll be okay? He nodded. Maybe. Everyone faces their truth eventually. Leah sighed, tears of relief slipping down her cheeks. It feels like I can finally breathe again. Daniel smiled faintly. You can, because now there are no secrets between us. She looked up at him, her heart full. Thank you for not giving up on me. He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. Thank you for being honest at last. They stood there for a long time in silence, the evening light soft around them. For the first time in months, Leah felt free, not from her family or from her past, but from the lies that had chained her heart. And in that quiet moment, she realized something simple yet powerful. Sometimes love isn't about perfection or appearances. Sometimes it's about forgiveness, about finding truth after the storm. The morning after Anna left, the house felt different. It was quiet, peaceful, and filled with a strange kind of calm. Leah woke up early and stood by the window, watching the sunlight stretch across the garden. For the first time in months, she didn't feel fear pressing on her chest. She didn't have to pretend anymore. She didn't have to hide behind someone else's name. Downstairs, Daniel was already at the table reading a newspaper. He looked up when she came in and gave her a small smile. Morning. Morning, she replied softly, pouring herself a cup of tea. They sat together in silence for a few minutes. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence, but a thoughtful one. Then Daniel folded the newspaper and said, I spoke to your parents last night. Leah's hands froze around her cup. You did? He nodded. They were worried, but I told them everything's fine now. I also told them that from now on you'll make your own decisions. Leah looked at him, eyes wide. You said that? Yes, he said gently. You've done enough for them. It's time you live for yourself. Tears stung her eyes. I don't even know where to begin. He smiled faintly. Begin anywhere. That's how life works. That morning, Leah took a walk outside. The air smelled of rain and the earth was soft under her feet. She thought about the woman she had been when she first came into this house, frightened, uncertain, carrying a secret that wasn't hers to keep. And now she was standing here, free from lies, with a heart that finally felt like her own again. Daniel gave her space in the days that followed. He didn't rush her or ask for answers. He simply treated her like herself, not as a replacement for someone else. It felt strange at first, but slowly she began to relax around him. One evening, as the sun was setting, Daniel called her to the porch. He was holding 2 mugs of tea. Sit with me? He asked. She nodded and sat beside him. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. They watched quietly as the sun dipped below the trees. After a while, Daniel said, "When I first met you, I didn't understand why your eyes seemed so sad. I thought maybe it was just shyness. Now I know it was because you were carrying everyone's burden." Leah looked down at her hands. "I didn't know what else to do. I thought if I refused, my parents would lose everything. They kept saying this marriage was the only way to save the family." "I believed them," Daniel nodded. "They used your kindness against you. But that doesn't mean you have to live in their mistakes forever." She looked at him, tears gathering again. "You're not angry anymore?" He shook his head slowly. "I was never angry at you. I was angry at the situation. Angry that you had to live through it." Leah smiled sadly. "You're a better person than I ever gave you credit for." Daniel chuckled softly. "I wouldn't go that far. I made mistakes too. I should have confronted your family earlier. I let things drag on because I wanted to see where it would go. Maybe part of me hoped that the woman I saw standing before me would show me something I'd never seen in Anna. And she did." Leah tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He looked at her gently. "You showed me what real care looks like. You listened, you noticed the small things, you spoke softly but honestly. Anna, she always wanted attention. You wanted peace. And peace, I've learned, is far rarer." She didn't know what to say. Her chest felt warm and heavy all at once. Days turned into weeks. Life began to feel normal, like something she could finally hold on to. Leah started reading again, helping Maria with the garden, and even joined a small charity group in town that supported young girls who had been forced into arranged marriages. She didn't tell anyone her story, but her eyes carried the truth. Daniel supported her quietly. Sometimes he'd drive her to the town meetings. Sometimes he'd wait outside reading while she worked. They rarely talked about the past, but when they did, it was gentle, like touching an old scar that had finally stopped hurting. One evening, Leah came home from one of the meetings to find Daniel in the kitchen, trying to cook. "You're brave," she said with a small laugh as she walked in. He looked up, embarrassed. "I thought I'd surprise you, but I think the pasta's winning this fight." She giggled softly, the sound light and unguarded. It had been a long time since she'd laughed like that. Together, they managed to save the dinner, though it wasn't perfect. They ate outside under the stars. It was simple and quiet, but something about it felt right. Leah looked at him and said, "Do you ever think about starting over completely? Just leaving everything behind?" Daniel smiled thoughtfully. "I used to think about that a lot, but now, maybe starting over isn't about leaving everything. Maybe it's about seeing the same life differently." She nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right." The next morning, Leah received a letter in the mail. The handwriting was familiar. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It was from Anna. The letter was short. "Leah, I'm leaving the country for good. I'm trying to build a new life away from everything. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope someday you'll remember me not as the sister who hurt you, but as the one who set you free, even if it was by mistake. Thank you for taking the pain I couldn't bear. Live your life now. You've earned it." Leah read the letter 3 times before setting it down. She didn't know how to feel. Sadness maybe. Relief too. But mostly peace. Anna was gone, and this time it wasn't a secret or a lie. It was closure. When Daniel came home that evening, she handed him the letter. He read it quietly, then looked at her. "How do you feel?" She took a deep breath. "Lighter. Like I can finally stop looking over my shoulder." He smiled softly. "Then it's a good thing." Weeks passed. The seasons changed. Leah found herself smiling more, speaking more freely. She started painting again, a hobby she had once loved but abandoned long ago. Daniel even cleared a small room in the house for her to use as a studio. He'd stop by sometimes, standing quietly in the doorway as she worked. One afternoon he said, "You know, you look happiest when you paint." Leah smiled without looking up. "Because when I paint, I don't have to pretend. It's just me and the colors." He stepped closer. "You should never have to pretend again." She looked up at him then. "I don't, not anymore." That night, Leah found herself thinking about how far she had come, from being a stand-in bride living in fear to a woman who had reclaimed her life. The journey had been painful, but it had also shown her what strength truly meant. A few months later, Daniel asked her to join him for a weekend trip to the countryside. It was quiet there, surrounded by tall trees and open fields. They spent their days walking, cooking together, and talking about simple things. On their last night there, they sat by a small fire outside. Daniel turned to her and said, "Do you ever think about what love really means?" Leah smiled faintly. "I used to think it was about grand gestures and promises, but now I think it's just about being seen." "Really seen?" Daniel nodded. "Then I hope you know you've been seen all along." Leah looked at him, her eyes warm. "And you've been patient enough to see me." There was no need for more words. The silence between them said everything. When they returned home, life continued peacefully. Leah's parents visited once, trying to apologize, but she met them with calm strength. "I forgive you," she said simply, "but I won't live my life for anyone else again." Her father's eyes filled with tears. Her mother held her hand tightly. "We were wrong," she said softly. "We thought we were protecting you." Leah smiled gently. "Now I'm protecting myself. That's enough." They left quietly that afternoon, and for the first time Leah didn't feel anger or guilt, only understanding.